Welcome to Amazon Studios and Prime Video's celebration of Indigenous Peoples Month. Haumidaku yepi Mato Ayuhi imachiapelo, naha iyuha chante washtea napre chiuzapelo. Nak'un oyate ni tawa hena ocheti shakoi na titwa. Hey everybody, my name is Mato Ayuhi. I'm an artist originally from South Dakota, and I'm enrolled in the Oglala Lakota tribe on the Pine Ridge Reservation. I make music and I work in film and TV. As an Indigenous artist and creator, 2021 has been so exciting. I had an opportunity to compose music for reservation dogs, and am thrilled about increased conversation about representation on and off screen. Beyond entertainment, natives in the U.S. have been leading the way on vaccination rates and supporting community-wide public health efforts. 2021 has also held some grim reminders to our people of the generational trauma that we continue to endure by way of residential schools, both in the U.S. and Canada. Many of us are direct descendants of those who survived these institutions, and it's so important for us and our allies to acknowledge these historical atrocities, mourn for the lost generations, and outline effective action and restitution demanded by us from federal lawmakers. This year has been a whole lot, so having space to heal with our communities and others alike is a major necessity. This Voices event is about celebrating and amplifying the voices of our Indigenous creators who are truly leading the way in the entertainment industry, while also educating and acknowledging hard truths. We are so excited to hear from amazing leaders and talent, and today is also about you, the entertainment industry, learning about ways you can improve how you tell inclusive stories that are expansive, celebratory, thoughtful, and respectful of Indigenous communities. I'm speaking to you today from the land of the Lenape people. The past few Voices events have started with a land acknowledgement, but as this is Indigenous Peoples Month, I wanted to share with you a little bit why land acknowledgements are important. All land was originally inhabited by Indigenous people. In many cases, the land was stolen from them, and the people, my people, were killed for access to the land and the resources. Indigenous communities do not exist only in the past. Today, Indigenous people make up 5% of the world's population, but are still protecting and preserving many of the world's natural resources. Land acknowledgements help center us where we are, but also help us think about ways we can repair the damage that we have done both to the earth and also to the Indigenous communities who live and lived in a place. Some communities have reparations programs, including real rent or voluntary land taxes, to pay back Indigenous communities for what was taken from them. So that is something else you can look into. And I encourage all of us to actively acknowledge the continual displacement of Aboriginal communities from their homes, and how your actions, whether it be traveling or full-time occupation of stolen land, perpetuates this. We can find local Indigenous organizations to donate towards, ask permission to enter Indigenous spaces where you can learn about us, invest in the preservation and restoration of marginalized communities in that area. It's more important than ever to educate yourself. Illuminative, one of Amazon Studios' partners for this event, who will be speaking next, also has a resource about land acknowledgements on their website if you want to build this into your practice for events and meetings. So starting off this event, I'm so excited to invite my friend Heather Ray, director and producer from Iron Circle Pictures, and Leah Salgado, Chief Impact Officer from Illuminative, to speak. Heather and Leah, along with the team at Illuminative, have been documenting the erasure of Indigenous people on screen and work closely with studios, including Amazon, on building more inclusive productions. They have recently launched an industry guide to support teams, and we are so excited to learn about that today.
Hello, my name is Leah Salgado. I'm Bosco Yaki from Tucson, Arizona, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Illuminative, and so happy to join with you today.
Hi, my name is Heather Ray, and I am a film and television producer, and I also work as a narrative change strategist at Illuminative.
We are so excited to be able to have this conversation really about understanding what some of the long-term barriers have been to Native representation within the industry and overall in the invisibility of Native people. And so I think, Heather, I don't know if you want to go ahead and start as we talk about the history of cinema.
Absolutely. As a filmmaker, one of the things that I have been really passionate about is the history of cinema, as well as the history of representation within the cinema. I think one of the things that's really interesting about film as a medium, the 130 years that it has existed, is that it has its roots in anthropology. So the actual literal roots of filmmaking as a form are in anthropologists and their endeavors to study culture. I've always felt that was a really interesting thing to understand because in so many ways, um, film is storytelling. And I think of storytelling, particularly filmmaking, as a contemporary expression of an archaic form. And as said by the brilliant Indigenous scholar and thought leader Jesse Wente, he says that storytelling is the language of culture. And I feel as though film is very much that. It is the creation of images that inform our identity as a nation, as a people, as a society. And it's a powerful, powerful tool. And it has, in the 130 years that film has been around, it's had a real impact on Indigenous people, on Native and Indigenous people. There's two ways in which I see the impact that the representation of Native people has impacted. The first is invisibility. And Illuminative has engaged and is founded on powerful research, namely the first set of research, which is called Reclaiming Native Truth. And from the early research that founded our organization, we understand that Native people and their representation in film and television in America lands somewhere between 0 and 0.4%. In other words, it's a fraction of a percent. And in a culture that is entirely driven by media, this is essentially systemic erasure or true invisibility. And I think that, Leah, you could speak so eloquently to the impact that invisibility has.
Yeah, I think we have to understand that the way we understand the world, right, is largely through what we're consuming, whether that's what we're watching or hearing, or reading. And so industries like the entertainment industry are so important, right, in that space of creating narratives or ideas about people. And, we talk a lot, and I think, Heather, you and I have conversations about this all the time, is that in order, to really understand something, you have to see it. In order to care about something, you have to see it. And so invisibility really does play this role, not just, in terms of the statistics, but also changing and altering the psychology of everyday people, right? Both native and non-native. So, for example, when we think about, invisibility, our K through 12 education system, right, 87% of states, right, don't mention Native people in their K through 12 curriculum, right, which is crazy. And when we think about like how fundamental education is, right, to all of us and how we do our jobs and how we go forth and, change the world, right? For Native people to be excluded, even from that most basic foundational piece, really does start to have impacts. We know that when interviewing, judges and, Congress people as part of Reclaiming Native Truth, what we found is that invisibility, right, means that they don't have even a basic knowledge a lot of the times or information about like federal law and how it impacts Native people or tribal sovereignty or even think that Native people exist. And so when we talk about, the importance of visibility, it really is about making sure Native people, right, are included in just everyday conversations. But more often than that, right, and I think we can talk about this more in a second, is that the way in which Native people are seen begins to have a real impact, right, on how people treat Native folks. So when we look at mascots, for instance, we know that that's one of the biggest ways in which, non-Native people see and engage with Native communities. Folks are, viewing those mascots and then, all of a sudden stereotyping Native people overwhelmingly as more aggressive, has impacts on the way that non-Native youth treat Native youth within their schools. And so when we talk about like the importance of visibility, it really is about like breaking down the ways in which Native people end up being dehumanized, in which we end up being erased. So it's not just about, wanting to see ourselves on screens. It's really about how it impacts everything from the courts, right, to policy decisions that are being made, to how people are treated on an everyday basis. And I think one of the most startling statistics that Reclaiming Native Truth really pointed out is that the lack of knowledge or information that one consumes about Native people is actually a predictor for how supportive you are of policies or legislation that impacts Native communities, right? So if you know nothing, if you never see Native people, right, you're less likely to be supportive all around.
Absolutely. Well, I really see, and certainly from the research that Illuminative has done, I really see that education and media representation really work hand in hand to perpetuate systemic erasure. They also work hand in hand to create narratives about a people that are inauthentic and that are inaccurate. And one of the real missions of Illuminative, right, is to instill authenticity and accuracy about representation. The other way that Hollywood, aside from the erasure and the invisibility of Native people, the other way that Hollywood has worked is by creating images that are really destructive and that dehumanize, Indigenous people. When we look at Hollywood in its trajectory of a century, one of the things I think people don't realize, which is really important to understand, is that Hollywood built its foundational wealth on the Western. So the era of the Western was literally when Hollywood established itself as a powerful, powerful economic force within the world. And that was really built on the backs of the degradation, dehumanization, and villainization of Native Americans. And so that is an example of how Hollywood has been a weapon, literally a weapon used against the people. Hollywood built its foundational wealth on the Western. So the perpetuation of negative stereotypes and imagery is, as you were saying, Leah, whether it exists in the space of school mascots or sports team mascots or understanding people, news. When I talk about film and television and media, we're also including news media, which has played a role in the misrepresentation and the misinformation about Native people. So all of this combined and everything that we've talked about is, I think, really indicative in some of the research that Illuminative has done that identifies that almost 80% of Americans identify that they really don't know anything about Native Americans. It's literally the majority of the country doesn't understand who the original people of this land are. And that is really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, yeah, Heather, you and I talk a bit about how important, right, the entertainment industry is, media is, right? Like when we think about what we're reading and listening to is on like constructing narratives, right? So it's not just about, the ways in which, Hollywood has very much excluded Native people, right, and been used as a weapon, but it's also about the way in which they've started to mold and shape, culture and the way that we view this country and this country's founding, right, and the justification really used for westward expansion when we talk about the Western genre.
Absolutely. I mean, it was really a period, the golden era of cinema was really a time in which, America was trying to I think America was really struggling with its history. It's a very young country, in a broader perspective of countries. America's a really young country. So is Canada. I mean, these are countries that, in many ways are built upon the bedrock of civilization and histories that unfortunately as American citizens, we really know very little about that original history and of the people of this land. And we don't have those access points. And one thing I think is really exciting about the changes that we're seeing in the film and television industries is we're starting to see that story can actually be those access points. That we can begin to touch in and understand more about who Native people are and the full breadth of our history on this land. So I think that, Leah, all the work that you have been doing and leading at Illuminative in terms of creating protocols and this guide for the industry is so powerful, and I think that, you should definitely share some of what we're up to with this industry guide.
Yeah, and I will say that as much as, right, like there's been this destructive history at some points, right, about, the way in which media is sometimes weaponized against Native people or excluded Native people. I think 2021 has been like this wonderful year. Like we get to talk about, the importance of TV shows like Reservation Dogs from Sterling Harjo and Taika Waititi. We get to talk about Rutherford Falls and the amazing work that, Sierra Teller Ornelas is doing with Mike Schur and Ed Helms. And then we get to talk about like film where, we have films like Wild Indian and Night Raiders that are, now getting the critical acclaim and then being released, I think, more broadly than, a lot of films have been given the opportunity before, that's showing like complex Native characters, right? And complex stories, right? That's weaving our histories in with like contemporary settings. Like when we think about Night Raiders, from Danis Gillette, and how she's really talking about, the really destructive policies within Canada against First Nations people, where they were stealing children, right?
Yeah.
As part of their assimilationist policies, but bringing that into like a dystopian apocalyptic era, right? How
Yeah.
wonderful our ability to do that is. And as much as I think, you and I talk about like the importance of supporting Native storytellers and providing, those opportunities, we know that, Native creatives are really in the best position possible, right?
Yeah.
To bring out good representation and complex stories and authentic context. But we also know that at the end of the day, right, it can't just be about us focusing only on, good representation. We also have to do the work of getting rid of the bad representation that exists. And so this industry guide really is an opportunity for us to do both, right? I think that there are many in the industry who understand the importance of telling stories right, right? And understand the importance of like authentic stories, of accurate stories, of stories that are doing, things of service for communities of color, bringing in, storytellers of color. And so there's definitely a lot of, ways in which this guide is helping to shape and solidify, steps that the industry can take, right, in that way. But it's also providing opportunities to really understand, like, hey, these are the stereotypes that have really impacted Native communities. There are cultural protocols when it comes, to filming on tribal lands, of using, Native cultures within content, and how can you start to be aware and understand, right, what those things are and the questions you should ask. But I will say that, one of the things that we were able to do with this guide that we're so proud of, is to talk with, a couple dozen Native creatives in the industry, right? Folks that have been in the industry for decades, folks who are newer, but who have been involved in all kinds of levels of production. But I think, I would want to make sure, Heather, that you kind of talk about the importance of like the role that, producers and directors have and writers have, within these rooms to help combat, right, some of the negative representation that we do see.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was mentioning at the very beginning of our conversation about the cinema having its roots in anthropology, one of the things that's interesting about the movement for inclusion and authenticity and voices within the industry right now, in many ways within the culture broadly, one of the things that's amazing about the times that we're in is it's really about mitigating anthropology. Anthropology is the science of observation, observing the other. And while there's value in it, and we've learned a lot about culture through the science of anthropology, it hasn't always best served marginalized peoples in Hollywood. And so what we're seeing now is this shift to where people are telling their stories from their point of view, they're telling the story from rather than about. And it's a very powerful shift. And it's a real shift in the direction of narrative change, which is something we're hearing a lot of, this idea of narrative change within the industry and then with the broader pop cultural spaces and the social and racial justice spaces. We're talking a lot about narrative change. And part of that is identifying perspective and really narrowing things down to who is telling the story. I'm a producer, so I'm an advocate. I'm supporting the voices of others. And so much of my work has been about supporting voices that maybe we haven't heard from before, including Native and Indigenous people. And for a very long time, the industry was telling us, the industry had this kind of internalized rhetoric that there wasn't an audience and that nobody was really interested. And from Illuminatives research, from Reclaiming Native Truth, we now know that 78% of Americans want to know more about Native Americans. That is incredible. That tells us that from that 0 to 0.4% of representation to nearly 80% of people wanting to know more about Native people, we have this tremendous market gap. And it's a real opportunity to begin to really learn and understand and celebrate Native people in a very contemporary sense. At Illuminative, and you and I and everyone else at Illuminative have talked a lot about this idea of the new Native, like a new trope of the new Native, which is a fully dimensionalized, flawed, just complex human being that is a part of this world here today. And certainly Reservation Dogs and Rutherford Falls and several of the feature films that have been made in the last couple of years, these are all tremendous examples of what this means to be creating new narratives. There are generations that came before, absolutely, that paved the way. But now we're in a time where there is a real interest and there's absolute an opening into people wanting to understand more about the complexity of this country and all of who we are.
Yeah, for sure. And even when we think about like the roles that Michael Gray Eyes has been able to play, like I think of Wild Indian a lot from Lyle Cobell Mitchell Jr., right?
Mm-hmm.
Where Michael's character is really a flawed human, right? He's very complex, and I think it's been so wonderful to watch this like new generation of storytellers, right, that are pushing the envelope and saying like we're not going to settle for what you told us we could be right on screen. We're
Yeah.
writing our own story, and we're going to show all the complexity of what it means to be Native in a contemporary way. Like I think Reservation Dogs does that beautifully as well with an ensemble leading cast of all Indigenous actors. And the reason why they're able to do this is because they had an entire Indigenous writers room, and they had Indigenous directors all throughout. And you know what? Like the series is critically acclaimed, and there's so much
Yeah.
excellent press. And it's like I think when you talk about the internalized rhetoric, Heather, of the industry of being like, there's no audience for this, right? Like people don't really have an appetite. I think now we have, a variety of really beautiful, excellent examples of what happens when you just give Indigenous talent the opportunities that they've been ready for, right? That they've been waiting for. And when we think about like, how can the industry or how can, just everyday, people really support, Native representation and Native visibility, it's really about like really understanding, as an individual, right, as someone in positions of power, right, like how many Native folks do you have, within your company or organization, or who you're following on social media, or,
Yeah.
the books that you're reading. How do you bring Native people and make them an integral part, right, of the world that you build for yourself? We have to hire Native talent. We have to diversify, right, all
Mhm.
aspects of the industry. But I think it's really important that, we understand that like Native people have been ready, right? That we've been telling our own stories in our own, communities for a really long time. And so all of this is a really, long time coming. I know, Heather, have been a long, part of this long journey of ensuring storytellers, right, are getting trained up.
And there are many people who within this industry have been working for a long, long time to create to create new possibilities for representation that more respectfully and honestly reflects our country and our world, because Hollywood, produces the majority of the world's content, particularly with, these streamers, these powerful streamers like Amazon, like Netflix, Apple, Hulu. I mean, some of these platforms are in 200 countries. And so we bear a responsibility with this industry to have integrity in our representation. It's really what it comes down to. It's not even so much a moral argument as it is just what makes sense when we look at the world and what makes sense for the marketplace.
For sure. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that we hope that if you're watching and you're part of the entertainment industry, that you're able to go to luminatives.org in order to download our industry guide. That's really a way for you to begin some foundational knowledge. It won't answer every question that you have, but it sure, will help you start down the path of ensuring you're connecting, right, to Native talent and to Native organizations who are doing some of this work. That's really important. I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to really drive home the importance of using not just this guide, but all guides that Indigenous folks put out about ways to engage with Native communities when filming content, both that includes Native characters, but also are on Native lands. In part because everywhere that you step within this country is Native land. That land has been stewarded and protected and defended by Native people long before America came to be. And while there are specific lands in which tribal governments, steward that land officially, and there are protocols around that, it's really important that we ensure that within our consciousness as storytellers, right, as folks that are working within the industry, the importance of telling authentic stories, of including Native creatives, both in the writers' rooms, behind the camera, in decision-making positions, and within crews, because it's really going to be instrumental to creating accurate and authentic, beautiful, complex stories. And so we hope that tools like this guide really enable, right, storytellers to do what storytellers love best, which is to tell us, bring us into the world that they're building. And so I'm so thankful that I get to be in conversations with change makers and champions like Heather Ray here. And so thank you, Heather, for joining us for all of this.
Absolutely. And there's so many folks that have been working for a very long time and are working to make a difference in the industry. And so really, kudos to everyone who's in the front lines of narrative change. And thank you, Amazon, very much for giving us this chance to have this conversation.
Thank you so much, Heather and Leah. Everybody go bookmark illuminatives.org and find their guide to support your inclusive productions in the future. So I was watching in the chat and I can see that there was a lot that resonated with you all. So Wild Wild's Theories said that they wish this was mentioned more in schools. It's so important when they discussed erasure and misrepresentation of Native people. Couldn't agree more. Kate599 said decolonize Hollywood when Heather discussed Hollywood creating its economic footprint on Westerns and the degradation of Native people. DE said Indigenous talent behind the scenes are so important. I could not agree more, DE. So up next, we are going to up the energy a little bit and bring some music in here. Music has long been a part of Indigenous culture, but just as Indigenous people are dynamic, diverse, and not monolithic, our music is too. In this set, you're going to hear from me, Mato Ayuhi. But before that, I'd like to acknowledge some of the recent conversation about Native communities' love for hip-hop culture. Some have felt it's a form of appropriation, and we really appreciate you calling this out so we can dive into the topic. So hip-hop has long resonated in tribal communities because it has been about speaking up and speaking out against oppression and authority figures. Because of the lack of power that is historically apparent in both communities, the things that have been stolen and stripped from us, music has been a unifier between Black and Indigenous cultures. And as an Indigenous artist who appreciates various aspects of hip-hop culture, which invariably is Black culture, I recognize my responsibility to respect those whose continual innovations in sound and style influence me. This means much more than just appreciating the music. This means acknowledging the racism and anti-Blackness existing within Indigenous spaces. This means uplifting Black/Afro-Indigenous voices within the hip-hop community as ardently as I would for others experiencing marginalization. This means holding safe spaces where Black and Indigenous artists can continue to nourish our kinship networks that have existed for centuries. This means celebrating the people whose culture has informed so much of modern Indigenous culture. So without further ado, please enjoy some music from me, Mato Ayuhi.
Yeah, oh so bona fide, yeah. oh so bona fide, yeah. Oh so bona ride, oh. Yeah. I'm a made man, but I'm still a menace. Have my main man rearrange your face for the dentist. You get grace with my presence, you get laced on my sentimental taste. Bring the bass to buzz this place into a separate state. I've been better than all these bitter veterans, taking spots like I'm playing Twister, but this ain't no game. Mister to my wrist, getting blisters from the ice on it. Tell my sisters don't gotta fight to see life exist. Robbing for the opportunity to flock the nest. Stock tons in my whip, Jazz 96. Cock a gun if it comes to that, but it will not, cause job is done before you even try to pay your stolen stash. Ride around with kin, drifting on baloney skin. My cousin round the way, slanging crypto for the currency. It wasn't always him, I wanna see him free again. The shit we going through is something else like us on CNN. Yeah, I said that shit we going through is something else like us on CNN. Let's begin, 1 to 10. Know that I win, huh? Yeah. Oh so bona fide, yeah. Oh so bona fide, yeah. Oh so bona ride, whoa. Yeah. Nice. How's everybody doing? My name is Mato Wayuhi. I'm an artist originally from South Dakota, part of the Oglala Lakota tribe. And yeah, let's boogie. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, whoa, whoa. Eyes closed so hard. I'm seeing constellations, and the sheets be the fragrance of remember when, remember when, remember when, remember when. Chilaquiles at 3 a.m. Love making, wearing just an apron.
Okay, like, so how are we?
Young and old at the same time.
But how did you
run that boat from the baseline? Whoa, you were trapped inside too many sunny days, working 9 to 5 for bummy wage. Send some money home to mommy's way, cause her son has boy tendencies. Raised by no father, so dollars my figure. Dumb good vigor, I look up to you so you seem bigger. Eyes closed so hard. I'm seeing constellations, seeing constellations, and the sheets be the fragrance of remember when, remember when, remember when, remember when. Eyes closed so hard. Yeah, I'm seeing constellations, and the sheets be the fragrance of remember when, remember when, remember when, remember when. You can keep me on the side like the grains of the chicken. You can keep me on the side like the streets you can't visit. But when I'm on the rise, I'll be changing my digits. And so I motorboat the thighs, and like Moses I'm splitting. Yo, I wrote you a little rhyme, and I hope that you get it. Cause most people that inspire me don't ever listen, cause they read her in the sky or they pose for the pictures. Cause their smile don't arrive if in gaining dimensions. But keep me up in your mind if you go against villains. Anybody posing trials, go and show 'em who's victim. Defend you until the flies eat my donuts for dinner. And the fruit of all my strides, throw 'em right in the blender for you. And I really, really, really wanna represent the set, but to do so I had to do a do-si-do with death. Catch me tick-tock dancing with the devil out of breath. Catch me when I'm slipping fast off a precipice of stress and wrath. I said, catch me when I'm slipping fast off a precipice of stress and wrath. Oh, everybody hands up like this, go. It's so good to be here with you. no, that ain't the move. Find all the people that help you to groove, whose skin is so smooth, whose job is to soothe. You're proud of my sound, baby, I'm proud of you too. You are so down, well you know I am too. Been quite a while since I was roaming the ghost of the home, and my town is all staying the same, except you and your colors are growing out lanes. So beautiful when you blossom. It's okay if you change, oh. You could change, oh. You could change, oh. You could change if you don't wanna stay the same. Blossom, blossom. Everybody's gotta blossom. I had a nightmare that you stayed the same, oh. Banking on fools, no that ain't the move. Tell me who will want company that don't accompany each of your dreams. Is a family if they don't just comfort your schemes. I've been away, dodging disaster decay, causing a gap with the travels I tuck in that day. Tuck in that day. If you still with the man and his plans, give you the praise in advance. Raising the spirit, igniting the engine, exhausting the cost of attendance and friendships. But bitch, I do blossom. I said, it's okay if you change, whoa, oh. You could change, oh. I had a nightmare that you stayed the same. Oh. Can I fall asleep on you again? 'Cause on you my dreams never end. Can I fall asleep on you again? 'Cause on you my dreams never end. I'm giving love another go. It's been years, just so you know. Pardon me if I'm broke. You've been so much, it takes a toll. Here you showed with such a stroll. Speckled fro atop your skull. Dimples deeper than my soul. In an array of the unknown, you found time to help me through. As I rewind, seeking truth. Did I even mean something to you, you? 'Cause you say you're overwhelmed, and that I didn't help. And I hope whoever treats you better. Oh, 'cause you say you're overwhelmed, and that I didn't help. And I hope whoever treats you for you faster than I've ever gone. I was really falling for you faster than I've ever gone. I was really falling for you faster than I've ever gone. I was really falling for you faster than I've ever gone. Won't be long till I sing this song like you, you, you. 'Cause on you, my dreams never end. Amazon Studios. My name is Mato Ayuhi. Thank you for having me. We got one more song for you. This is called Stone Cold Lover. Mwah. Howdy do, I am a stone cold lover. I love you. I am a stone cold killer too. Yeah. Tell you what, let's take some whole grain before I take your whole brain and bash it, smash it, and remake the frame. Don't wanna make you feel like any type of way, so stop running, 'cause you won't get away. Half of me wants to give it all up to you. Half of me saying, psh, you can miss me with that. I'm seeking truth. What do I do? Oh, just a stone cold lover. I love you. I am a stone cold killer too. A stone cold killer too. Yeah, just a stone cold lover. I love you. I am a stone cold killer too. A stone cold killer too. Stone cold. Stone cold. Been building up some barriers to keep me sane, and they would all fall if someone would claim all that Lone Star status, that cowboy fabric. Be killing all the Indian in me, I can't stand it. I love it. Trusting you is like Pharrell just frontin', fibbing for affection. Never been about that function. If it's fiction, I might fuck around and stop you breathing before you take my breath away. Yeah. Don't wanna be judged on my doing. Jerry steady construing, constructing my ruin with the shade they tossing and crewing. Wonder what they say when I do pop, claim the stage, raw pavement, make it shake, quake the shackles of Mato Wayuhi. The name is so sacred, so treated as treaties that never do break it. I said, Mato Ayuhi, the name is so sacred, so treated as treaties and never do break it. Thank you. Just a stone cold lover, I love you. I am a stone cold killer too. A stone cold killer too. Just a stone cold lover, I love you. But fuck you, I am a stone cold killer too. I am a stone cold killer too. Hey, stone cold. I said I'm stone cold. Stone. Thank you very much. Stone cold, I'm stone cold. Stone cold, I'm stone cold. Stone cold, I'm stone cold. stone cold.
Thank you all for the love. You can definitely follow me on Spotify and all the other streaming services. And shout out to the ASL interpreter, Jimmy, for absolutely matching the energy. That was so great to see. So up next, we have a panel about changing the narrative on screen. As I mentioned at the beginning of the event, it has been amazing to see the representation emerging on screen of Indigenous stories, contemporary stories that feature us not as figments of the past, but as real humans with well-rounded narratives. This next panel will dive deep into just that. So this panel features Bird Running Water, who after spending 20 years at Sundance leading their Indigenous, DEI, and artist programs, has a new first look deal with Amazon Studios, and Jenna Claus, who plays the character Martha Blackburn on the Amazon original series The Wilds. This panel is moderated by Laura Clark, Deputy Editor for In the Know.
Henshe, my name is Laura Clark, and I'm the Deputy Editor of In the Know by Yahoo. I'm also an enrolled citizen of the Muskogee Creek and Cherokee tribes. I would also like to acknowledge that I am joining you from the ancestral homeland of the Serrano people here in the San Bernardino Mountains of California. I am so excited today to be here with Amazon Studios. I'll be moderating today's panel, Changing the Narrative, Effective and Representative Indigenous Stories on Screen, a candid conversation about current stories, film, and portrayals that are amplifying, celebrating, and supporting Native American communities on screen. For our panel, I'm excited to welcome two talented Indigenous voices with us today, discussing representation and their experience in the entertainment industry as Native people. Bird Running Water and Jenna Claus.
Thank you for having me. Like you said, my name is Jenna Claus, and I'm a Cayuga Nation Wolf Clan member of the Haudenosaunee people from Six Nations, Ontario. And I'm a 22-year-old actress on Amazon's The Wilds. And I was born and trained in Buffalo, but I currently live in Canada.
Hi Laura. Hi, Jenna. Hi, everyone. My name is Bird Running Water, and I belong to the Cheyenne and Mescalero Apache tribes, and I'm dialing in from Tongva lands here in Los Angeles. And I've been working in media for 25 years, the majority of my career, elevating Native American and Indigenous voices in the media. First, I started at the Ford Foundation, and then I was at Sundance Institute. And most recently, I've just entered a producing deal with Amazon Studios.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us today. Just to get started, as we talk about representation, I would love to know when you, each of you, first saw yourselves represented on screen, and what did that mean for you? Bird.
Oh, man. Well, it's so funny to ask that question, because I kind of, as a fan of cinema, like I've always seen different facets of myself in different ways. But I have to say, in terms of like the Native American part of me, I kind of sometimes feel like I'm still waiting to see kind of the full picture, and I feel like, I got glimpses of it when I was like probably 5 or 6 years old, and I watched, Little Big Man, and was traumatized by the massacre scene, and just, all the other kind of glimpses that we happen to just kind of catch whenever we were kind of, whether in Westerns or in other films. But I think one of the ones that really had a special meaning to me was also a film from the 80s. Some of you probably are too young to remember this, but it was this film called Windwalker, and it was a Cheyenne language feature film. Period piece about warring Cheyennes and Crows. And my mother's Cheyenne, and she speaks the Cheyenne language. And so it was kind of particularly a revelatory experience to go watch that film with her, and to have my mom hear her language represented on a screen, and to kind of tap into a world that was actually kind of a pre-colonial world where it was just all Native people. And so, but I think I still hunger for, maybe the more modern and even futuristic representations of ourselves, which is what I'm hoping to delve into in some of my future work.
Absolutely. I love the idea of just getting glimpses. There's still more to come. Jenna.
Honestly, the very first time like I've seen like any Indigenous representation was honestly when I was like a kid. Like the very first time I seen that was the movie Spirit, and it was an animated film, but that's kind of like the movie that like pushed my interest in like acting out loud, because I remember I was like reciting this monologue from that movie, and it was about taming this horse. And I honestly, as a kid, I was just reciting it. I had no idea what it meant, but my dad would look at me and be like, "How do you know that?" And I'd be like, "I, I'm honestly just copying this movie because it was like something that was, felt more close to me in a way." But seeing me like on screen, like me personally, I feel like I made that little girl who was like just getting into this industry of movies, and I just really hope that like I'm making that little girl proud, because I felt like back then there wasn't too much in my time, like for kids movies and stuff for me to look up to, other than this one movie that kind of piqued my interest in this industry.
That's amazing. I love that. And you're doing such an amazing job representing, because I know as a child myself, I didn't see that so much. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. For decades, Native people have been characterized in only specific ways on screen most of the time. Not only has there been a history of erasure, but of dehumanization and stereotyping that happens within the community. But it doesn't have to be this way. Bird, in your time at Sundance, did you see a broad range of stories about Indigenous people?
You know what? I felt very privileged to work at Sundance, running, my most recent job that I had, because I was running the Indigenous program. So I got to live in a world of just only Indigenous created stories, whether in script form or whether in actual film form, because I was one of the selectors for Sundance Film Festival. And so one of the things that I did was I actually not only covered, the United States for Native American filmmakers, but we actually were a global program. And so I got to track the world, whether Canada, Latin America, the Pacific, Australasia, as they call it, the circumpolar Arctic. And so I got to work with a lot of Indigenous filmmakers from around the world. And so, I was really, it was great. It was amazing. It's like I got to see so many Indigenous authored representations of all of these different worlds, Indigenous worlds from around the world. And so, I think that the average viewer, I think, doesn't really know how much of our own created work is out there living and thriving in so many aspects in different places around the world. And so that was one of the most exciting things about my previous job that I had at Sundance.
That's awesome. I'm sure you saw so many stories, which is amazing. What are some of the new trends that are emerging both in the US and globally?
I would say, it's kind of like one of the things that I feel like almost all of us as Indigenous people, as Indigenous storytellers face working, in film and television is, that there's the misfortune that we've always been represented historically by other people other than ourselves, right? And so there's not really, I don't think any other community really has as much of a burden as storytellers to try to deconstruct, maybe like 100 years of misrepresentation and inauthenticity. It's a tough word to say, but it's kind of like, so we're trying to create contemporary stories. We're trying to correct historical misrepresentations. We're trying to project forward, and also at the same time trying to create our own aesthetics and our own forms that are all culturally influenced. Like I'd love to see, what a Cayuga film looks like, or what a Cherokee Creek film looks like, or an Apache film, because I feel like culturally and linguistically, we all have our own cultures. And so I feel like that's one of the things that I really tried to fan the flames of when I was working purely in film for Sundance Institute, was to really encourage filmmakers to push form and push aesthetic, and to really look at their own kind of cultural history of storytelling and see how that could be merged with, cinema and with cinematic storytelling. So that's one of the trends. We started to see the emergence of, Navajo cinema, or, Kiowa cinema, or all of these other different kinds of very specific tribal cinemas. And then I feel like most recently, there's been a lot of, everyone's really striving to tell contemporary stories, but I feel like one of the newest kind of forays that's really starting to happen right now, especially with Danis Goulet's film, Night Raiders, which is currently on release in Canada, starting to go into the sci-fi kind of genre. And, there's other shows that I hear of that are kind of percolating in the industry that are starting to go into that space as well. And I think that's really exciting.
That's so exciting. And I love what you say about just differentiating between the tribes. I think that sometimes gets lost. So tribal cinema just sounds amazing. For Jenna, in the past year, we've seen more shows featuring Indigenous actors, particularly content celebrating their identities more than ever before. So Jenna, how has your identity been a part of what you bring to the roles that you play?
Well, full disclaimer, I am very new to this industry. All my other projects have been student films. So for me to step into this world of Amazon and, this higher platform, it was truly the biggest opportunity I ever had in my life. And for me to portray this role, especially one that's so close to me, and the love that we have for our Indigenous lineage is so natural for me. I grew up going to Longhouse, getting educated from my grandmother, and listening to these stories. And I did grow off the reservation, so all I really had was word of mouth and stories and but seeing movies along with what we're trying to achieve, it was movies like Spirit, Crooked Arrows, The Grizzlies, Wind River. Those movies came out when I was starting to be in my teens. And with that, though, it made me have this more sense of comfortability, there are other people out there like me. Because growing up, I had no idea there was different tribes from all around the world, because that wasn't shown to me, especially when I'm being educated on all these historical and tragic events that happened to my own family itself in the past. So for me to see all these new and modern and authentic stories being told, I'm just very thankful I get to be a part of that.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And representation is important, in front of the camera, with you, Jenna, but also behind the camera too. Are you seeing representation of people within the Indigenous community, improve within the entertainment industry? Are you seeing those roles happen more often? Bird?
I think so. I think different countries are kind of advancing also at different paces. I do feel that within the United States, we are one of the global dominators when it comes to content creation that really kind of permeates around the world in box offices and on screens and platforms. I do feel like, unfortunately, in the United States, I kind of feel like we're a bit kind of behind other countries. Because for instance, where Jenna's from in Canada, they have the Aboriginal People's Television Network. In New Zealand, they have Maori Television. In Australia, they have National Indigenous Television. And they also have a lot of really great significant support coming from a lot of the arts and cultural institutions that really try to create and nurture their own national content. And so there's a lot of Indigenous divisions like the Indigenous Screen Office in Canada, or, the Indigenous unit at Screen Australia, that are specifically there to fund and support the creation of Indigenous content. And so, because in the United States, we are a capitalistic country, we don't necessarily have that much, national support for arts and culture in our own country. So I feel like that's one of the factors that I think kind of leads to us lagging, somewhat behind. But then also, we also have this additional problem due to colonization in our own country, that, we've really been erased from not only history books, but also from screens across the country. So there's kind of like this big wave that we have to constantly fight about, whether it's capitalism or erasure, to really fight to try to tell something, from our own point of view. And I just really feel that right now, the things that we're seeing coming to screens, like Reservation Dogs and Rutherford Falls and so many other shows in development. I have another show in development that I'm partnering with Ava DuVernay on, which is an hour-long family drama that we're on the long road to development to hopefully get to screens at some point. And it's really an exciting time because for the first time ever, we're seeing on American television screens and platform screens, native created television shows. Our cinematic roots have kind of go back maybe 40 years. Like the founding kind of movement, people in the native film movement started in documentary. And then we eventually moved into feature films and fiction films, starting with Smoke Signals and ongoing with the work, of Sterling Harjo and many other, great filmmakers, Andrew McLean, Black Horse Lowe. And so, we've had a steady build over the last 40 years of people who just really put a stake in the ground from telling stories of our own perspective. But now we're finally getting kind of that mass media exposure. And I think it's really exciting.
It's such an exciting time. I totally agree. And I'm glad you bring up erasure, because you hear a lot of the arguments being, there's a pipeline problem or a claim that talent isn't available. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that, unfortunately, the industry, as we call it, because they are, transactionally driven and profit driven, that's how our media systems are structured in our country. Most often there was a bit of myopia that came to looking at Native stories and Native talent, because the average American, I think Illuminative, which is a national organization I'm on the board of, their data and national research has found that, as many as 80% of Americans do not know that we still exist today in contemporary times, because in textbooks across all educational standards in our country, we're only taught up until the 1900s and only up until junior high. And then if you compound that with absolute invisibility on screens, whether movie screens or TV screens, you have a really deep problem with decision makers in the industry who have grown up not knowing that we even exist. So when there's a claim that there is a shortage of talent or a shortage of voices and storytellers, it's most often because they don't know that we exist, and then secondly, they think that our stories could only be intended for a Native specific audience. But I'm seeing that in the most recent census, where our numbers, we're actually going to be hitting probably around 10 million in the United States. So people when we were like 3 million and 5 million, people are like, oh, that's too small of a market base. We can't really make money off of just targeting that small of a marketing, viewership. But I think one of the things that Reservation Dogs and Rutherford Falls are showing is that like our stories are for everybody. They're actually a part of, the canon of cinema and, television history now. So, and people are really interested. And I think it's an exciting time to capture those eyeballs and share some great times and stories.
I totally agree. Jenna, let's move over to you. What do you wish your industry peers and colleagues understood about the Indigenous community, particularly when it comes to telling stories that portray the Indigenous community?
Honestly, really wish that more people could understand what we represent, like especially like in my character is a sexual abuse survivor, and there is real elements in these Indigenous roles that are really real for our community, and when I was prepping for this role, I was talking to people that I know personally that experienced that, because unfortunately, like, it is real. Like, especially in my life, I've known people who have survived, and it's very disheartening to feel like these problems can only lie in like the people that you see on screen and not the people that you don't, if that makes sense. Because I often feel like what I'm portraying, because like, I've had dark times in my life. Like, I've had, real emotions come out to play when I play these roles. So I just wish people would understand more that the pain that is in our community, and unfortunately in everyone who has experienced it, is in our lives, and it's still very real to this day, especially like with all of the tragic events that are occurring. We keep finding more children, and it's not being talked about at all. So whenever the stories are portraying real topics, I just really encourage people to educate themselves and acknowledge us.
Absolutely. That's beautifully said. I think it's so important for people to understand that it's just not something that you're seeing on screen. It's not just a story. It's real life.
Yeah.
Bird, I have the same question for you. What do you wish your industry peers and colleagues understood about the Indigenous community, particularly when it comes to telling Native stories?
Ooh, how much time do we have? Well, I think one of the great things about that I feel like has kind of definitely been a strong cultural movement recently is just just this notion of land acknowledgements. Something that seems, I think, pretty simple and, I think pretty harmless, but it's this notion of that. I wish everybody understood that wherever they were standing in the United States, they're on somebody's ancestral lands, and by understanding that, I feel like people could start to get an understanding that there's history that they haven't been taught. There are people, who were here and are still here, that come from all these different lands across the United States. I feel very fortunate that, whenever I travel, like, I like to do my own research, and I like to know whose land I'm on and pay my respects and do that. And because I feel like I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly expanding, my own knowledge base. And so even just working globally and internationally, like just being able to go to different regions around the world. I remember one time I was driving cross country with a carload of Maoris in New Zealand, and we crossed this river, and every kind of landmark we crossed, like, they would quiz me, okay, whose territory are we on now? And I was like, oh my God, it's like, okay, I think we're on Chiatawa, Waka, something, I don't know. But I just think that there's just such great knowledge and history that can come with that. By doing so, I feel like if as in this new era that this place that I feel like I'm trying to not only nudge our culture, our American culture into by creating pathways for Indigenous voices and stories, is just for people to understand that there's great diversity, of us as Indigenous people. It's like we're all different. Like, all three of us here, all of our tribes all speak completely different and unrelated languages, and we all have our own specific creation stories about how we came onto the lands where, we now exist. And sometimes, it's like some of our tribes were forcibly removed from our ancestral lands. I just got back from Oklahoma, where I went to go visit my family near the Fort Sill Army base in Apache, Oklahoma. And my family, my Chiricahua Apache family, were held at Fort Sill as prisoners of war of the United States after being forcibly removed to a prison camp in Florida, and then after that to Alabama, and then subsequently to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then eventually released, in the early 1900s. And so, that's part of my family history. It's like my Chiricahua Apache tribe, we've never been allowed to go back to our ancestral lands, which are kind of southern Arizona, northern Mexico. That's a loss for us that, we will never be able to reclaim. And so I just feel like I hope that the average American, through our, wonderful and amazing story and enlightening storytelling, I don't think that we want to blame or point fingers but I think that we want to make people laugh, and we want to share the joy that we continue to experience as Indigenous people, which has really helped us, continue to exist today. And so I think that's kind of one of the things that I would want people to know, or many of the things I'd want people to know.
Absolutely. I love that. And just going into that history, it runs deep. And for the average American to know that, it just enriches their education even more, which is amazing. I love that. Speaking of comedy and the shows that have made an impact this year for Native voices, this year seems to have marked something of a turning point when it comes to contemporary Native stories reaching broader audiences. For example, Rutherford Falls, as you mentioned, Reservation Dogs, as you mentioned. Why now, Bird? What has made this year different?
Yeah. Good question. I don't know. Because I'll say when I started at Sundance Institute 20 years ago, I was coming from working for $1 billion foundation and, funding non-commercial media work globally. Came to Sundance and I thought, you know what? I'm like, okay, this is, I was so naive. I was like, oh, this is only going to take 2 to 5 years. Then we'll be on every screen across the country, every TV channel. And then I was in for a really rude awakening when I mentioned a lot of the, the issues that beforehand, just kind of people were just not interested. It's like they didn't want to finance our films. They didn't want to buy our films. They weren't looking for writers. They weren't looking for directors. And so I think the biggest pivot that I saw personally, and from the point of view where I was sitting, was when Standing Rock happened. And the standoff at Standing Rock was particularly influential because of social media. That's been a whole new era and globally, between all of the different platforms of social media. But people news and information started traveling individually, as opposed to having for us to wait to appear in newspapers or to wait to appear on the national news or even local news, and, I've even heard a story that some of the editors who are particularly old school at the New York Times, their millennial generation were so tapped into social media, and they were all getting feeds from Standing Rock on their social media and trying to lobby the editors at New York Times we need to be covering, this issue. And they've had such great resistance, And so thankfully, something eventually perforated through where we started appearing in newspapers, and then the national news took hold. We probably hadn't been in the national news for probably almost probably 30 years, And so that level of national visibility definitely had an impact, where all of a sudden, especially our liberal-leaning industry with Trump, then President Trump in office, wanting to kind of, be able to push back on this conservative agenda, started recognizing they had a blind spot with Indigenous talent. And that's when, in terms of the office I used to run at Sundance, that was when we started getting inundated with requests. And it was, and I had been on the job at that point for 15, 16 years. And that was a whole new experience. And then so now after the murder of George Floyd and this racial reckoning moment we're in, compounded with, an ongoing pandemic, I feel like the whole touting of BIPOC and the understanding that the I in BIPOC stands for Indigenous, again, reinforced a lot of people in our industry recognizing that they had a huge blind spot when it came to Indigenous talent and story and representation. So I like, as a cultural strategist, it's kind of I always look at these trends of how things are impacting and moving, within our industry. But, it's been, and, social media, as much bad as it's caused in our society for Indigenous representation, it's been huge. It's really allowed each and every individual one of us to be an author and to be able to represent ourselves and to be able to point our cameras and shoot and upload our own perspectives and things. But it's also created a lot of negativity, a reinforcement of racism and a lot of other mistreatment. Like Jenna's saying, kind of, the ongoing missing and murdered Indigenous women, issue is still, massively, massively huge. And it's really sad. But I feel like now we're starting to get out more of that kind of information about these issues thanks to social media. And then we're seeing it carry over into films being financed at a higher level, TV shows. I mean, I can probably count on two hands the number of Indigenous created, episodic shows that I'm hearing about at different networks and platforms and other different kinds of companies. So, it's an exciting time. And I hope that this isn't just a phase. I hope this isn't just a window, and that's why I personally wanted to step into a different role away from what I had been doing the past 20 years to really try to make this a lasting cultural shift. And I really think I found some great partners with Amazon Studios and the teams there.
That's amazing. You actually read my mind. That was my follow-up question. I wanted to see if, all of this, everything that you said, Standing Rock, George Floyd, social media, did that influence your decision to produce full-time, to step away from your previous role?
Yes. And, also kind of like, I was really interested in, I think the episodic form was really fascinating to me because I've been working in feature films for 20 years specifically, and my friend, like I mentioned earlier, Ava DuVernay, she approached me about potentially collaborating on a TV show, and that's where I got my feet wet and my palate. I was just like, oh my god, this is so cool and exciting, and also being able to be a part of a creative team working on an original idea, because previously the work I've done has always been about storytellers and artists bringing their concepts to me and me helping them to find their best way and trajectory, along the way, to help tell their stories and help develop their voices and support their voice. So I kind of feel like with this new show, Sovereign, that we have in development, and then I have a few other projects that are also in development as well, I'm actually getting able to start to develop and use my own artistic voice for the first time. And so that's really exciting and addictive in a way.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what you're producing. Jenna, did you want to add something?
Actually, I did want to mention this one thing. We were talking about this a while ago when you were talking about how you went to, different places of the world and you're seeing whose land you're on. So when we were filming my show, we were filming in New Zealand, and every new beach that we were at was on Maori land. So it'd be like 5 a.m. after we would get like our wardrobe and hair and makeup done. The first thing we would do, we would get a blessing, and it was called karakia, I'm pretty sure, if I'm saying that right. Excuse me if I'm misspeaking that, but it was so beautiful. And honestly, being so far away from home as well, it gave me this like other sense of comfortability, even though it was like foreign, like I, couldn't understand everything, but it resonated with me because I know people look at me that way. So when you were speaking about that, that part really resonated with me.
You're so lucky. What a blessing.
That's amazing. Wow. Well, I know that Bird brought this up before, but Native joy, that's something that is so amazing to see. There are a lot of tragic stories out there, but there's also a lot of humor. Native people are funny. We see that. What's one on-screen moment that you can think of that's brought you genuine Native joy? Jenna?
Honestly, the first movie I've seen that really made my eyes widen was when I first watched Crooked Arrows, because I actually have friends and family members that were in the cast and like as extras. And there's a scene in that when I think they're playing the championship game and there's a parade of all their family members coming out with flags, and I'm pretty sure like they were singing, and I can't remember the scene fully, but I do remember seeing that was almost the first time like as like I'm maturing a movie where they show this element of people being proud of being Native and showing people that the game of lacrosse was Indigenous made. It's not a white sport, or like people would say like I didn't know Natives even played lacrosse. And that to me was a movie that, because I grew up playing lacrosse, I held a stick before I probably could even walk. Like that element has been in my life like as long as I could remember. It was our medicine game. It is our medicine game. And that movie was a pinnacle point in my view of this industry, because I was like, okay, maybe like there is, some hope that people will look this way, like in our direction, and see that there are so many elements in our community that can be brought to life. Like as you said, like Reservation Dogs, Rutherford Falls, and all these comedies coming out. I was taught like is our medicine, like laughter is medicine. And, we could all use that, especially during this pandemic and all these, horrific residential schools events that we keep finding, but it's not being talked about. And other serious movies like The Grizzlies or Wind River, those movies that deal with suicide and missing and murdered Indigenous women, that is a movie that I have never seen growing up. And to be honest, like I really did wish there were more like that, because I wasn't fully educated on that. Because I went to a Catholic high school, so you can imagine what I was taught as a Native kid sitting in those classes. So honestly, with all these movies coming out, I could just say like it's about time.
It's about time. Bird, what about you?
Yeah, well, I guess like I said earlier, like I've been very fortunate to live in an Indigenous created world of contents, for forever. Probably longer than Jenna's been alive.
Yes.
But, I guess I have to say, like, as a curator, when I first started at Sundance, when I was curating works, like, I helped, identify and support the early works of Sterling Harjo, who's a Creek and a Seminole, showrunner, filmmaker, writer, director, and then also Taika Waititi, who was a Maori, writer, director, Oscar winner. And they were two of the first artists that I started working with when I came on board at Sundance Institute. And one of the things I really appreciated about their storytelling was that it was so, it had such great harmony, in terms of like the representation of the Indigenous experience. Yes, there's tragedy. Yes, there's, misfortune. But there's also like we've survived and we still continue to laugh, And so if I think about Sterling's first feature film I helped him get made, which was called Four Sheets to the Wind, he and Taika had this very similar approach. And Taika's second film I helped him make, his first two films, but his second film was called Boy. And the two of them had this beautiful ability in their writing of harmonies, of a harmony of a Native experience and emotion to maybe have a backdrop of heartache, but to really pull out these moments of just hilarious laughter in their stories. That was always kind of there was all these different beautiful notes all playing at the same time. And I think we're starting to see that, as they migrate into more episodic work. But I think that there's a scene in Sterling Harjo's Four Sheets to the Wind where the young, Native man's kind of central character is, his father's just died and he has to go, his mom sends him to go speak to a psychiatrist. And it's just a hilarious moment where the psychiatrist is a white guy and said his Native girlfriend used to call him by a certain kind of Creek Muskogee word. And he says it meant great white warrior, but, Chuffy, the lead character, says, actually, that means something else. And so, like, that was such a hilarious moment because this kid's suffering from the loss of his dad, but he's sitting with a psychiatrist trying not to laugh at this psychiatrist saying, a very naughty word in Muskogee. So I encourage everyone to go look for that scene. But yeah.
That's amazing. I'm going to watch that as soon as I can. That sounds amazing. Well, last question. Do you believe, you were mentioning, Bird, about seeing a film in Cheyenne language, and I know that language and bringing that back has been so important with tribes, especially as some Native people, my grandma, my Full Blood Creek grandma felt that maybe passing along the language wouldn't help our family. Do you see a future where there will be films and TV shows in a native language, in many native languages?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's one of the things of this kind of, we're kind of like Sterling and people like Black Horse Lowe and Andrew McLean, who are Native American filmmakers and Alaska Native. They're kind of like considered to be kind of this third generation of Native storytellers in the United States specifically. And there's a fourth generation and even a fifth generation starting to emerge. But that's one of the things I was really impressed with Sterling and Andrew and Black Horse when they started first making their first short films, and that as they moved on to features, they really had a strong commitment to including their Indigenous languages in their stories. As a matter of fact, I know Black Horse Lowe is currently working on a Navajo language feature film period piece, which is having a bit of difficulty gaining traction, on the financing front, but I think that would be an amazing accomplishment to see, a feature film entirely in an Indigenous language. And I think that some of our storytelling community is really committed to making that happen, just as a part of their own learning process and also helping to kind of contribute towards, their own language longevity.
I look at us as a community and I see how far we've come with educating and fixing the distortion of how people view us as an Indigenous community. So looking at how far we've come, yes, I do believe, hopefully sometime soon, that yes, more channels, more movies, well, even just having like the subtitles, just something that can show little kids that, know words that their classmates don't, you know what I mean? Like, I really just want the children who are, slowly learning this stuff themselves and finding, their identity in media. I want them to feel right at home with, coming home and turning on a movie that, they can inspire from and look up to and help them feel like they're not alone in the elements that they're portraying in these stories and films.
Well, I wanted to thank everyone here today, Bird Running Water, Jenna Claus, such great conversation. It's so amazing to be here with Amazon Studios, and thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. Thank you all for your voice in that panel and sharing how effective and representative Indigenous stories are being told on screen. Thank you also for your work to make the industry better. It will take all of us, those in the community, along with all of you who are watching and learning about Indigenous people today, to drive for lasting change. And thank you to those who have been active in the comments for the event today. We see you. DE loves that we had a space for pronouns. Of course, we're very inclusive over here. A lot of love for Jenna and her portrayal of Martha. It really was beautiful seeing such a real, authentic Native character on a show like The Wilds. To see you all show love for the character and openly say how much she and Jenna mean to you is very heartwarming. Shout out to everyone on that show and to Jenna for bringing such authenticity to it. And I'm also seeing some love for my friend Bird's comment about Native people redefining our stories in futuristic genres like sci-fi. It's been great to see how unique our stories can be when we are the ones telling them. Amen. So our part of the program for today right now is some music from singer and songwriter Ray Zaragoza. Thanks, Ray, for being here today, and we are excited for our audience to hear from you.
Hello everyone, I'm Ray Saragosa, and thank you so much to Amazon Studios for having me for this Voices event, amplifying Indigenous people's voices. I am so grateful to be here, and I'm really excited to share some music with you. And this first song I'm going to play is called Fight Like a Girl, and this song is about honoring all of the women, past, present, and future, who have fought for our rights as women of color, Indigenous women. And so thank you so much for being here and for listening. This is Fight Like a Girl.
Grandma Nature, Mother Moon, show me what to do when they are taking our rights away, policing our bodies. Easy, easy we go. It's repeating on and on. Take me to the water, take me to the snow, where all the souls of our mothers had to go. Take me to the street sides, teach me your battle cries. Take me to the front lines of the war, to fight like a girl. Send me knowledge, send me peace from when you were fighting for all the rights that I have today. Our homes, our votes, our voices. Easy, easy we go. It's repeating on and on. Take me to the water, take me to the snow, where all the souls of our sisters had to go. Take me to the street sides, teach me your battle cries. Take me to the front lines of the war, to fight like a girl. Fight like a girl. Fight like a girl. Fight like a girl. Take me to the water, take me to the snow, where all the souls of our mothers had to go. Take me to the street sides, teach me your battle cries. Take me to the front lines of the war, to fight like a girl.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm Ray Saragosa, and that was my song Fight Like a Girl off my latest album, Woman in Color. And the next song I'm going to play is a song about searching for bravery when you're feeling afraid. And the song is about the bravery to be vulnerable, the bravery to speak up for what's right, the bravery to put your voice on the line. And so I feel that one of the bravest things you can do as a human being is to speak up. Speak up for what you believe in, speak up for what you know is right. And this song is about really making that decision to finally speak up and stop staying silent.
Spent my summer in a van, St. Augustine to Michigan. Held my breath, said a prayer. All those people waiting there. I've been searching so long. It lived in me all along. Burn me in the desert and drown me in the rain. Throw me to the thunder, push me out of the plane. searching so long. It lived in me all along. Burn me in the desert and drown me in the rain. Throw me to the thunder, push me out of the plane. I don't feel afraid anymore. I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. We are warriors. Burn me in the desert and drown me in the rain. Throw me to the thunder, push me out of the plane. I don't feel afraid anymore. I'm a warrior.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Again, my name is Ray Saragosa. Thank you so much to Amazon Studios for having me for this Voices event. And it means so much to me to have these events amplifying Indigenous voices. I come from a very mixed background. I'm of Akime Atham and Mexican descent, as well as Japanese and Taiwanese. And I'm very proud of my Indigenous ancestry, and Native American Heritage Month means so much to me. So I hope you really take this month to listen to so many incredible Indigenous artists, creators, and musicians, and see all the really cool things they're making. So thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm Ray Saragosa, and I'm going to end with a song called American Dream. And I hope to see you soon.
I've been thinking about the news. Daddy leaves it on all day through. I've been thinking about the wars. To be honest, I can't take it anymore. I hear you every day saying it's gonna be okay, but hate can't be the face of the American dream. I've been thinking about my life and how one day I want to be a mother and a wife. I've been scared of that thought too. In a world of struggle, what are we gonna do? I hear you every day saying it's gonna be okay, but hate can't be the face of the American dream. And I know we've got a long way to go, but I've got to believe that change is a choice, and it can start with me. 'Cause I've been thinking about our mother and how they took her away from her people, put her in a boarding school, away from her brother, sister, and culture. I can hear her every night saying we've got to make this right, 'cause hate can't be the face of the American dream. but I've got to believe that change is a choice, and it can start with me. And change is a choice, and it can start with me. And change is a choice, and it can start with you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to Amazon Studios. I'm Ray Saragosa, and happy Native American Heritage Month.
Thank you all again for joining Voices. As a follow-up from today, we encourage you to learn more about how to amplify and celebrate Indigenous voices. Some ways to do this include going to illuminatives.org and reviewing their production guide. Check out the LA Skins Festival happening November 16th to the 21st. Watch and amplify the content created by Indigenous creators. You should be seeing more of it in the coming years. And if you are in a position to hire Indigenous talent on your projects, know that we are here and ready for the roles above the line and below the line. Review Amazon Studios' inclusion policy at dei.amazonstudios.com for more details on how to hire inclusively on your sets. Thank you again for joining. Again, my name is Mato. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
I've been thinking about the news. Daddy leaves it on all day through. I've been thinking about the wars, and to be honest, I can't take it anymore. I hear you every day, the awful words you say, but hate can't be the face of the American dream. I've been thinking about my life, and how one day I want to be a mother and a wife. I've been scared of that thought too. In a world of struggle, what are we gonna do? I hear you every day, saying it's gonna be okay, but hate can't be the face of the American dream. And I know we've got a long way to go, but I've got to believe that change is a choice, and it can start with me. I've been thinking about our mother, and how they took her away from her people, put her in a boarding school, away from her brother, sister, and culture. I can hear her every night, saying we've gotta make this right, 'cause hate can't be the face of the American dream. And I know we've got a long way to go, but I've got to believe that change is a choice, and it can start with me. And change is a choice, and it can start with me. And change is a choice, and it can start with you. Spent my summer in a van, St. Augustine to Michigan. Held my breath, said a prayer. All those people waiting there. I've been searching so long. It lived in me all along. Burn me in the desert and drown me in the rain. Throw me to the thunder, push me over the flame. I don't feel afraid anymore. I'm a warrior. Bright lights, sharing tears, thanking grace for bringing us all here. It ain't lonely on the road when there's love everywhere you go. I've been searching so long. It lived in me all along. Burn me in the desert and drown me in the rain. Throw me to the thunder, push me over the flame. I don't feel afraid anymore. I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior. We are warriors. Burn me in the desert and drown me in the rain. Throw me to the thunder, push me over the flame. I don't feel afraid anymore. I'm a warrior. I've been thinking about the news. Daddy leaves it on all day through. I've been thinking about the wars. And to be honest, I can't take it anymore. I hear you every day. The awful words you say. But hate can't be the face of the American dream. I've been thinking about my life and how one day I want to be a mother and a wife. I've been scared of that thought too. In a world of struggle, what are we gonna do? I hear you every day saying it's gonna be okay. But hate can't be the face of the American dream. And I know we've got a long way to go. change is a choice, and it can start with me. And I've been thinking about our mother and how they took her away from her people, put her in a boarding school, away from her brother, sister, and culture. I can hear her every night saying we've gotta make this right, 'cause hate can't be the face of the American dream. And I choice, and it can start with me. And change is a choice, and it can start with you. Spent my summer in a van, St. Augustine to Michigan. Held my breath, said a prayer. All those people waiting there. I've been searching so long, it lived in me all along. Bright lights, sharing tears, thanking grace for bringing us all here. It ain't lonely on the road when there's love everywhere you go. I've been searching so long, it lived in me all along. I don't feel about the news. Daddy leaves it on all day through. I've been thinking about the wars, and to be honest, I can't take it anymore. I hear you every day, the awful words you say, but hate can't be the face of the American dream. I've been thinking about my life, and how one day I want to be a mother and a wife. I've been scared of that thought too. In a world of struggle, what are we gonna do? I hear you every day, saying it's gonna be okay, but hate can't be the face of the American dream. And I know we've got a long way to go, but I've got to believe that change is a choice, and it can start with me. And I've been thinking about our mother, and how they took her away from her people, put her in a boarding school, away from her brother, sister, and culture. I can hear her every night, saying we've gotta make this right, 'cause hate can't be the face of the American dream. And I know we've got a long way to go, but I've got to believe that change is a choice, and it can start with me. And change is a choice, and it can start with me. And change is a choice, and it can start with